So our last presentation of the day is Neil Keating, and some of you will know Neil. He's been very prominent in the development of the experience management movement for many years, and he's probably excited by what he just heard from Mariana. He will recognise a lot of the ideas that are in there. Neil is going to answer basically the question using experience management frameworks. If not CSAT or NPS, then what? So Neil, it's time for you. Take it away.
Thank you, Alan. Well, welcome and thanks for inviting me to this event. It's been some great speeches that I've been listening to, so it's been really interesting. My name is Neil Keating, and I work for X Labs. I'm going to introduce that in a second, and I'm going to talk to you about if it's not CSAT or it's not Net Promoter Score, then what is it, and how do we do it? And we've been talking a lot about experience level agreements, and I'm going to walk you through the framework that the XLA Institute have devised that is now becoming an international standard. So I'm going to walk you through how that works, but I'm going to do some slides just to introduce the concept of what I'm talking about. And I'll talk about CSATs, and I'm going to talk about Net Promoter Scores and try and show you where they might fit in. So I'm going to talk about who we are, what is experience, what is wrong with the traditional metrics that we've been doing, what is wrong with things like CSAT and Net Promoter Score, then how do I measure it, and then I'll think about how we can move forward. So for those who don't know us, as I said, my name is Neil Keating. I'm the Chief Experience Officer, co-founder of X Labs. We are the thought leader in experience management. We have a lot of experience. I've been personally doing experience management for about 8 years. Our company is purely dedicated to experience management. We work globally. We've done work in the UK where we've got offices. We've got offices in Europe. We've got offices in the US. We've been working around the globe, helping our customers move from just delivering SLAs to also delivering XLAs. And I guess the key thing that we help organizations with is that we help organizations change the way that they're reporting and measuring success of their product or service. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about IT here, but it's not always now IT. So a lot of organizations we're now working with are focused on HR or focused on, we've done some return to work, we've done some police XLAs, we've done some meeting room XLAs. So these are now really spreading out from just IT into other areas. But the key thing is most organizations are still measuring success purely based on service level agreements or key performance indicators or technical measures. There's nothing wrong with those things. It's just that's not the measure of success. The only true measure of success in our view is the success of those people consuming your product or your service, whether that's IT, HR, or whatever. If they are successful, then we can say we've been successful. So the way we help them is through enabling them to measure success through experience. And that's what we've all been talking about today, and that's what the panel will be talking about. So we do that through 4 ways. We do that through delivery of the XLA Institute accredited education. So if anyone's interested in becoming certified in experience management, please contact us or the XLA Institute. We do experience assessments and advisory, making sure people are ready for this, capable for this, and where they are in their sentiment sort of gathering processes. A lot of our time we spend in consulting, both strategic and operational, helping organizations either build out XLAs or build out experience management offices. And we also partner with some technology companies as well. So I'm going to start with this, and I know a lot of you who are interested in experience management would have seen this before, and if you've certainly seen me present, you would have seen this before, because I start most of my presentations with this, because this is a really important quote to me, and I think it's a really important quote to experience management professionals overall. This is a quote by Carl William Booner, who was an American preacher, made famous by Maya Angelou, the American poet. But he said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And the reason why I wanted to start with that is because this talks about the F word. This talks about feelings. And if you just boil experience right down to understand what it is, this is about feelings. It's how people feel about you. It's how they feel about your product. It's how they feel about your service. It's how they feel about working with your company, how they feel about working with your team. So this is really about feelings. And when I say that, what a lot of people automatically think is we must delight people then all the time. We must ensure that everybody is delighted with our services, everyone is delighted with our products. And whilst that's a good ambition to have, whilst that's a great thing to do, we have to be a bit realistic. because you cannot delight everybody all the time. You cannot make people happy all the time. You know, I would be delighted if I had a brand new Apple Mac every year and a brand new iPhone every year and a brand new iPad when I'm traveling around every year. I don't have any of those things. I'm talking to you through not a non-Apple laptop. But am I delighted by that? I'm not necessarily delighted, but I am okay with it. I am, when we use the word comfortable. I am comfortable with it, because what psychology teaches us is that happiness isn't necessarily about delight, it's about contentment. So I like to think about, when we think about this, it's great if you want to delight people. It's great that we want to make people happy. It's great that we want to make people feel positive, and they're all great things. But we just, at the very least, need to be good enough. And good enough means that we are making them feel comfortable. Because if we're making them feel comfortable with what we're doing, then we are delivering a quality solution. The actual definition of a quality solution is a solution that is fit for purpose. So if we're making them feel comfortable, we're giving them what they need, and that might just be good enough. So don't always think about everything has to be delighted. I didn't come into the office this evening and turn on the lights and they came on, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm delighted with the electricity company. That's amazing. If they surveyed me now, I'll give them 10 out of 10. But I am very comfortable, and I may be upset if they didn't work. So that's really what I want to think about. Now, if we want to take that a little bit further, and we want to boil it down a little bit more, there's a science called affective science, and that really studies moods, disorders, emotions. And they say that emotions are a physical thing. So we have our emotions and we respond to things. But then what happens to our emotions? They're normally short-lived. They're normally hours, minutes, maybe a day or so. But what happens to our emotions is that our brain applies our logic to something we've just had an emotion about. And that, therefore, is a feeling. So feelings are logical. And feelings help us make decisions, and they turn into action. We are going to do something about how we feel, or we're not going to do something about how we feel. We're going to be engaged, we're going to be disengaged, however, which way we feel. The problem we have is that all of our brains on this call here are all different. We've all got different backgrounds, we've got different experiences, we've got different logics. So therefore, dealing with experience management down at the individual level can be quite challenging. But we are also quite tribal. And when we start measuring it at a persona level or a group level, then we can measure and manage experience very well, because we can predict and we can see what people are understanding. And I think it was Alan actually who told me once, he doesn't care about Neil, but he does care about people like Neil. So if there are 5,000 of me, then suddenly that's being something really, really interesting to us. So when we think about experience, think about we're trying to think about feelings. Do we have to delight people? No, but we do have to make them comfortable. And it is that balance of all the positive and negative interactions that people have with you over time. So experience is cumulative, and that's really important for us because we have to think about things differently. So when I come on to CSATs and Net Promoter Scores, remember that experience is cumulative. And of course, now that IT has entered the experience economy, and I heard a couple of people talk about that earlier, that means that customers want more than just the service level agreements. They want outcomes. They don't just want outputs. And we just heard that SLAs are driving outputs and XLAs are driving outcomes. But what they also want, as well as the outcome, is the moment that matters for them. So as they're along the journey with that, they want some moments that matter. So if we're driving an outcome, then people also want to, yes, I want the outcome. If I'm ringing your support desk, yes, I want the outcome that you fix me, but I also want some moments that matter. I want you to treat me empathetically. I want you to be professional. I may even want you to be friendly. I want you to respond and communicate to me like I'm a human being. So we want moments that matter and outcomes, and that's what we've got to start thinking about. So what's wrong with the traditional metrics that we've been doing? So traditional metrics have been around for years, and they very rarely change. But they are useful. There's nothing particularly wrong with them. It's just that they don't measure experience. So SLAs are a great quantitative measure of what we call operational performance, so O data. Technical measures are a great quantitative measure of what we call technical performance, or T data. And they're useful for us. They don't measure experience, but they can indicate experience. So for most of my career, I've spent in managed services companies. And I can tell you, I've stood in front of many, many customers and showed them green dashboards of everything we've done and everything we've achieved, and they must be delighted, they must think we're great, but they still don't like us. Because one customer told me, Neil, I think you're just as bad as everybody else. Yes, I can see you picking up the phone and answering tickets and responding to tickets, but you're doing what's right for your contract and not doing what's right for our business. And it was that phrase that stuck with me all the way through my career, which is why I've ended up doing what I do now. So we need to move away from that, and we need to make sure, yes, of course we want to do what's right for our contract, but we need to make sure we're doing what's right that matters to people as well, matters to people's business. It has the right outcomes and the moments that matter along the journey. So traditional metrics are good at what they did, but they're not good enough in the economy that we're in now. So let me talk about Net Promoter Score and CSAT. Now, I'm not against Net Promoter Score. I'm not against customer satisfaction surveys. I'm not against annual surveys. I think they all perform a job. So they're all useful for us. And I'm going to imagine that most of you are sending out Net Promoter Scores or sending out customer satisfaction surveys. Nothing wrong with them, except they are quite transactional. And remember, I said a few slides ago that experience is cumulative. So we have to think slightly differently. Now, the thing with a Net Promoter Score, you'll get a number, different variants, but they're normally maybe somewhere between -100 and +100. And if you're in the positives, that's doing really well, and that's great. But often they focus on promoters and detractors, and just focus on promoters and detractors. And actually, there's a big group of people in the middle there that we need to also focus on. In fact, Harvard Business School say that if we focused on the group in the middle, we'd probably get a higher return on our investment. But often with Net Promoter Score, you also just get a single number, and you don't know why you've got that number. So we don't have context. And then we have customer satisfaction surveys. And again, I think they're useful, but they are transactional. So customer satisfaction surveys are normally sent out to our customers on something happening. Normally in IT, it might be a ticket being closed. If you took my car to the garage, they'd send me a customer satisfaction survey upon fixing my car. And so what they're asking me is, how well did we fix the car? How well did we fix your ticket? And if that's what we want to know, then fantastic. Then use customer satisfaction survey. But 54% of people don't log tickets at the service desk. So if we really want to hold them up as an experience measure, then we're ignoring more than half the people. So they can't be held up as an experience measure because they're not cumulative. They're transactional. It's a bit like going through a baggage hall and you get those red, amber, green smiley faces. They're measuring one thing and one transaction only. So if we want to measure that one transaction, great. If we want to measure if we want to measure one transaction, maybe we'll use customer satisfaction or we'll use Net Promoter Score. So then what a lot of people do is they send out annual surveys. They get that and think, okay, maybe I need to do something different. And I'll send out an annual survey. And I'll ask lots of questions in this annual survey. And again, annual surveys are quite useful. However, they take a long time. They're too far apart. If I've got a problem where we're now nearly coming into March and your survey doesn't get out until October, I've got a major issue. And I'm going to do something. I'm going to vote with my feet. I'm going to vote with my wallet. I'm going to make a decision because I am unhappy and I'm going to move on. So there's not enough data within that. So the main problem with Net Promoter Scores and customer satisfaction surveys and annual surveys is this. We're all aware of survey fatigue. And the main problem with these methods is we send out lots of surveys to lots of people. And you know, that's okay, but people are only happy to give you a certain amount of feedback. And so we just got to make sure we're avoiding survey fatigue all the time. So we need to think slightly different because we want data back regularly. That's really important. We want data back daily. So people like Happy Signals will give us data back daily every time it goes out. We want that, but we just need to make sure we are also avoiding survey fatigue as well. Now, if we're not using these, then what are we using? So this is the experience management framework from the XLA Institute, and I wanted to talk you through this so you understood where this is heading and what we're doing. I need to tell you also that this is now a Dutch standard. So the NEN standard have picked up this and we're working with them to make this a standard in the Netherlands, which has now happened. And the NEN standard are moving this to, we hope, an international standard. So soon there might be an ISO standard on experience management. But it starts with collaboration. So we collaborate with our customers. We collaborate with our end users. And we understand their needs. We talk to them. We understand their needs. We understand what their outcomes are. We understand what they need from their IT. We understand what they need from HR, depending on where we're measuring it. And we work with them to understand those needs, and we work with them to understand the moments that matter along the journey. And once we've understood that, we can then start thinking of, well, what's the business impact if we do that? What's the return if we do that? What's the benefit to the end user or the customer? But what's the benefit to us as well? So we need to make sure there's an intrinsic value to the customer, but there needs to be a value to the company too. So what's the business impact? Because whatever we're going to do probably cost us some money, probably going to invest in some experience improvement projects. So why would we do this? So we need to make sure there's a return. And once we've understood there's a return, we write down the experience ambition. We write down the desired experience that we need to give people in that particular area. And we may have experience ambition 1, experience ambition 2, and experience ambition 3. And I heard a few of the speeches here today, and a lot of people saying that we start small and grow big. I think that's absolutely right. You don't want to run in with 10 XLAs. You need 1 or 2 or 3. Start small and grow it out. So write down the experience ambition, the desired experience that you want to give people in that particular area. And once we've done that and we've agreed that back with our business, say this is the experience we're going to give people, we now need to measure it. And this is where we start thinking about how we're going to measure that experience. And there's 3 sets of data that we would typically look at from an XLA point of view. First of all, there's X data. We've got to be really, really good at getting experience data. We've got to be sending really well-crafted surveys out. It doesn't always have to be a survey. It can also be other methods. I'll come to that shortly. But if we're going to send surveys, we need to be really good at them. And we need to have a really good tool to do that. And you've heard, I think, from tools like Sammy today, I know, and we know them well, that really good tools like that get sentiment data easily and quickly. That's what we need. But that's just telling us what people feel, and that's important. Remember, you cannot have an XLA unless you know how people feel. But we also want to know why they feel the way they do. So we match that data and bridge that data with how well the service is performed and how well the technology is performed as well. We want to understand how do people feel, but why do they feel the way that way as well? And that gives us more insights into some of their sentiments. And then we can score it and weight it and come around. And then before we finish this model, to make this successful, your company's got to have the right mindset. And the last couple of speeches I just heard talk about mindset and cultural change. It's really important. You've got to have the right skill set. And that's where the education comes in. The XLA Institute education will come in. But you've also got to have the right tool set. And we've been hearing about that today as well. So this is the framework that people are now using, that's implementing, that's underpinning most XLAs. But just to finish that off, so when we think about using that framework, let's just confirm what an XLA really is. If SLAs are a measure of outputs telling you what to do, an XLA really then is a measure of outcomes. It's a measure of those experience ambitions that I talked about a few moments ago. It's a measure of making sure that your customers have the right outcomes and your customers have the right moments that matter along the journey as well. Now, we use science in this. We use science to think about how we're going to do this. We think about psychology. We're thinking about effective science. We're thinking about statistical science. So to measure experience, of course, we need to ask people. And I just said we need a really good way of doing that. That's giving us the X data. But to get more insights into that, we need to think about, okay, how well did we deliver that service to them? Do we understand that if they said they didn't like our service, is there reasons why we understand that? Because yes, we agree the service wasn't delivered well enough. We also want to measure how well did the technology perform. And if we understood that, we could understand when people say, oh, I think IT is disturbing my working day, could we see why? Do we get insights into why? Are blue screens of death happening? Is it taking too long to log into applications? So using the framework that I described, you can start building the XLAs as they're defined here. But how do we avoid that survey fatigue? And there's lots of ways to think about here. People are very happy to give you feedback. General truth is people are happy to give you feedback. We live in a world where people give us feedback. Who doesn't give feedback on Amazon? Who doesn't give feedback on TripAdvisor? Who doesn't read that feedback? And if the TripAdvisor is saying that hotel we're in or you're about to book, the pool was cold and the food was bad, we all read it. We all believe it. We're happy to give the feedback. We want to consume the feedback. And so people are happy to do it. So we just need to find great ways to do it. So we don't always have to be a survey. We've done lots of call walls. We've done lots of fish bowls. Ride along is a thing in the UK police. We did a big project for one of the UK police authorities. And every 6 months, someone from IT sits with a police officer and actually goes out with them for the day and understands how they use IT. So it doesn't always have to be a survey. But 99% of the time it is a survey. So we just need to know, get a great tool. And I would suggest get the best tool you could find for getting a survey. One that's got great questions, one that's going to give you great insights, one that's going to give you a great dashboard so you can see exactly how people feel, and one that you can use maybe up to the minute, near time at the very least. But you also then, if you haven't got that, you need to know how to ask, when to ask, and you need to think about maybe sampling if you haven't got a tool that's doing that for you. Now, we teach those in the classes. I haven't got time to go into those today, but just think about what that might mean and how you might do it. I'm going to finish with this, and I'm just about coming up to time. So I wanted to leave you with this, really, which is about, just think that everybody at work that you engage with at work has an experience of you. Each one of your customers has an experience with you every minute of every day. Your customers, your end users, are using your IT systems, if you're from IT, all day, every day. I'm using your applications, I'm using your laptops, I'm using your devices, I'm using your internet, I'm using your network connectivity. If I'm a customer of yours, I have an interaction with you, I have an experience with you. And in one of the first slides, I said that experience was cumulative. So therefore, we need to think about that experience happening all the time. They're building up that experience all the time. Sometimes it might be positive, sometimes it might be negative, but it's the trajectory that we're looking at. Is there experience of you getting better, or is there experience of you getting worse? So everybody you interact with in your role has an experience of you, your team, your service, your product, your company, every time they interact with you. And the only thing I'd like people to think about at the end of this presentation is you have a choice. Do you want to design that experience and make it the best you can possibly make it? Or do you want to let that happen by accident? Because if you want to let it happen by accident and not design it, then to be fair, you probably don't need to do a great deal. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and maybe some of the others, and you can go away and think, oh, okay, I'm not going to do anything about that. But you'll be missing out on a whole load of things, which is most companies now are saying, actually, we need to design it. We need to make sure we can deliver that experience in the best possible way, given our resource constraints, given our budget constraints that we're all under, but let's design it the best way we can. And if you're in that camp, then I want you to think about, well, how can you embed experience in your daily role? How can you make sure you've got that mindset, you've got that culture change that everyone was talking about? How can you make sure that you've got the right skill set that's part of the model? How can you make sure that you've got the right tool sets that we talked about as part of the model? How can you make sure that you understand how people feel about you today? Think about how you might want them to feel. And then think about how can you move from just delivering service to also delivering experience? How can you move from just delivering SLAs to also delivering XLAs? And how can you move from that watermelon picture to the line picture that I talked about? And I think all the presentations you've heard, and I think the round table and the questions that people are asking, I think there's a great deal of interest in people saying, I really need to know how to do that. So think about the classes, think about the tools, think about the culture, listen to all the presentations, think, yeah, let's get involved and let's start designing the experience and make it the best I can possibly make it. So with that, Alan, I'm going to pass back to you and take any questions that you have.
Well, we're back. Thank you so much, Neil. And everybody, you know, Neil has probably done more XLA design work than anybody else on the planet. So it's great that he comes to share this information. Well, we're actually, the next thing is the roundtable. So we have a lot of questions, and we'll definitely add you and the rest of the gang to discuss those.